guys today. The Caitlin Clark stimulus package just got approved by Congress today. It's fitting that last time a new CBA deal was reached.
The greatest illusion a labor union can effectively convey to the public in the intricate, multi-billion-dollar world of international sports is the idea of common corporate value. When a business receives a big financial windfall, the union will leap to the platform, launch an aggressive PR campaign, and assert that the riches was created naturally by the entire staff as a result of their collective commitment to the product. However, a far harsher, unrepentant reality becomes apparent if you cut out the narratives from the mainstream media, disregard the congrats, and closely study the quantitative spreadsheets. Almost never is wealth created equitably. In highly specialized entertainment economies, fewer than 1% of the labor usually generates 99% of the revenue. Additionally, the WNBA Players Association is currently celebrating a significant and well-reported financial milestone that they did not naturally achieve. They are actively claiming responsibility for an entirely unforeseen black swan economic aberration. The unparalleled cultural momentum of a single generational point guard is today fueling the bank accounts of hundreds of players who produced zero independent market demand, and we are witnessing the ultimate exercise in corporate wealth transfer. Greetings from the breakdown. Let's reveal the raw mathematics truth about the very strategic group licensing arrangements, the WNBA's new revenue sharing agreement, and the shocking reality check that a billionaire owner just gave the league as a whole. You must comprehend the unique historical background of the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement in order to fully appreciate the overwhelming scope of the financial illusion that is currently occurring. A widely reported notional income sharing trigger was part of the CBA that the Players Union and the ownership group agreed back in 2020. This trigger's mathematical workings were made transparent. The gamers would only get half of the increased revenue. Revenue if the league as a whole reached a certain pre-established financial criteria. The league's 2019 revenue figures served as the benchmark, which was then increased by a whopping 20% each year after that. Reaching that compounded financial goal was mathematically impossible for 6 months. The league was a constant failure. They attributed it to the worldwide pandemic. They attributed it to a deficiency in marketing. Poor television time slots were the reason given. However, the harsh underlying business fact was that the core product was utterly unmarketable to a large, mainstream consumer base. The league was a huge financial black hole that was heavily financed, and the revenue-sharing trigger was financial analysts see it as a whole ghost clause that would never come into play in our lifetimes. However, the most disruptive and unparalleled economic force in women's sports history then made its way to Indianapolis. And all of a sudden, the seemingly impossible math became an indisputable fact. Take a listen to the historic announcement that the Players Union is using to support their entire approach to negotiations.
Is upon us. The WNBA generated enough revenue in 2025 to trigger revenue sharing with players for the first time.
Over the course of 4 years, from 2016 to 2019, the Players Union distributed $280,000 in group licensing earnings. This indicates that the general public was essentially purchasing nothing for 4 years in a row throughout a whole professional sports league. The jerseys were not being purchased. The trading cards were not being invested in by anyone. There was essentially no customer demand for WNBA products. However, the union has now abruptly declared that they will divide an incredible $9.25 million in licensing earnings. That represents a 3,200% gain in goods capital that has never been seen before. Additionally, the main portion of that enormous $9 million fund was created in the previous year. However, this is the cruel, indisputable catch that the union leadership is frantically trying to avoid talking about on camera. Millions of fans abruptly chose to purchase the jerseys of the backup point guards in Seattle or the backup power forwards in Los Angeles, so that $9.25 million was not made. The Caitlin Clark clothing line, Caitlin Clark Panini trading cards, and Caitlin Clark branded items accounted for nearly all of that money. However, that money does not strictly belong to the person who made the actual sales due to the unique, highly socialized mechanics of the union's collective licensing agreement. Here, well-known union leader Nika Aki clearly explained that the union actively uses a clever, but very contentious wealth distribution plan to safeguard the lowest tier of the rosters.
Quick. From 2016 to 2019, they dispersed $280,000. Nobody was buying jerseys, trading cards, merchandise. None at all. None whatsoever. Then from 2020 to 2025, now we're splitting up.
We create a collective package that includes our name, image, and likeness. This is the epitome of corporate socialism in a hyper-capitalist sports setting. In order to ensure that the enormous revenues made by a single transcendent megastar are systematically collected and dispersed equally among all employees, the players' union purposefully designs their licensing agreements in this way. The union anticipates that more than 250 people will share this enormous $9 million pool. This astounding figure includes players who are still playing in 2025, but it also astonishingly includes players who have already retired from the game and those who have had their contracts fully terminated. Consider the financial structure's mind-bending reality. You've a direct deposit of up to $50,000 will soon be made into the bank accounts of former WNBA players, women who are no longer even actively involved in the league. And the only reason they're getting that enormous cash windfall is because millions of ardent, devoted basketball fans in states like Iowa and Indiana chose to buy a rookie point guard's number 22 jersey. This is referred to as sharing in the growth by the union leadership. They present it as a stunning, cohesive group victory. However, in the brutal, unadulterated world of the sports industry, this is a highly structured, legally required kind of parasitism. Hundreds of people's careers and retirements are being artificially subsidized by the union through the Caitlin Clark stimulus plan. Athletes who, by themselves, could never produce a single dollar of goods income. And the looming 2026 lockout is almost certain to occur because of this extraordinarily large gap between who creates the wealth and who is aggressively seeking payment for it. With the $9 million licensing pool and the $8 million revenue sharing pot in hand, the Players' Union is currently storming into the boardroom and demanding a radical overhaul of the financial structure. They contend that the league's underlying market value has grown tremendously as a result of these recently set norms. However, the multi-billionaire proprietors seated across the mahogany tables are not foolish. Press releases are not read by them. They read analytics on proprietary data. They are well aware of the source of each and every dollar of that freshly created revenue. Furthermore, Jotai totally dispelled any remaining skepticism regarding the ownership group's perception of the league's present economic situation. Jotai is more than a mere bystander. He is the main owner of the New York Liberty, a merciless corporate magnate, and a billionaire co-founder of the Alibaba Group. He is a man who used the analysis of intricate data metrics and consumer behavior to build his multi-billion-dollar enterprise. On a hot microphone, listen to Joe Tsai quietly but brutally demolish the Players' Union's whole collective bargaining position by outlining the precise mathematical multiplier that Caitlin Clark introduced to the WNBA.
Quote, "We've grown as a union and put our name, image, and likeness into a collective package." Anneka Ogwumike says, "The union exists for us to be able to represent all players, so I think it's a great way for all players to be able to share."
Everything increased nearly fourfold, including sponsorship, ticket sales, and viewership. Take a moment to think on that enormous franchise-changing figure. 4x. Using internal league data, a wealthy owner recently made it public that Caitlin Clark's presence effectively quadrupled the organization's total financial footprint in a couple of months. A corporate titan such as Joe Tsai is not merely offering a compliment when he acknowledges that the metrics increased 400% due to a single player. He is using a disastrous negotiating strategy. He is methodically undermining the Players' Union's negotiating power. Claiming that the league is going through a historic moment of collective growth, the union is requesting 27.5% of the gross revenue. However, as they look back on them, the owners claim that there hasn't been any growth as a group. The WNBA's baseline product is identical to what it was in 2023. Just 25% of the current revenue comes from the baseline product. Caitlin Clark is the name of the other 75%, the enormous 4x multiplier that just activated your $8 million prize. A single generational anomaly's enormous, unpredictable multiplier cannot be used as justification for forcing billionaire owners to drastically and permanently modify their whole long-term financial infrastructure. Since such are short-term, one-time payouts, the owners are more than willing to allow the union to celebrate the triggered criteria and distribute the license checks. However, when it comes to securing long-term structural debt that is guaranteed, and if a union tries to claim ownership of a 400% spike that they did not actually cause, the owners will categorically refuse to provide subsidies under a new collective bargaining agreement. Locker rooms around the nation are currently experiencing the ultimate, devastating irony of this entire stalemate. The same season players actively reduced Caitlin Clark's effect during the 2024 season. The athletes who voiced their displeasure about her unusual publicity. The players who repeatedly insisted that the media honor the veterans who founded the league, as well as the players who committed hard, blatant fouls to test her physical fortitude. The players that are now checking are exactly those identical ones. Their bank accounts, excitedly anticipating a sizable $50,000 licensing payment that comes from the sale of her jerseys. They are completely dependent on the economy she established, yet they hate the attention she gets. Right now, the WNBA is hurtling toward a disastrous financial collapse. The players mistake a localized economic miracle for a group organizational victory because they are blinded by the unexpected cash infusion. The owners are bolstering their claims with indisputable internal statistics demonstrating the league's heavy reliance on a single asset. The union will demand payment for the 4x multiplier when the existing collective bargaining agreement ends, and the owners will forcefully close the vault. What is your frank, extremely critical viewpoint on this significant shift of wealth? Do you think the group licensing system established by the Players Union is a great way to safeguard all athletes? Or is the celebrity who really drives the enormous shirt sales being treated unfairly? More significantly, does the union's claim that the league as a whole is expanding now that Jotai has acknowledged a 400% spike? Leave your incredibly critical and censored opinions in the space provided for comments underneath. If you're looking for the harsh, unyielding reality about the true strategy, the true business, and the really ruthless corporate politics of professional sports, to ensure you never miss a deep dive, hit the subscribe button, forcefully hit the like button, and enable the bell notification. This channel does not feature mainstream media nonsense. We uncover the mathematical reality behind the press conferences, we follow the accounting, and we expose the leverage. I'll see you guys at the upcoming breakdown.